Happy Monday. Welcome into the PHNX Cardinals podcast, presented to you by the DraftKings Sportsbook app, America's top-rated sportsbook. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. I'm Johnny Venerable. He's Bo Brock, the great Damien Anderson, the pride of Northwestern, former Arizona Cardinal running back, also joining us today on I guess we can call it a Victory Monday, gentlemen. We were off on Friday. Cardinals locked up that dub on Thursday night. And Bo Brock, here we stand. The standings still have to be updated. The Rams didn't play a half game out of first place in the NFC West. Boy, oh boy, where do we begin?
It's like that Shawshank Redemption, Andy Dufresne. He's crawling through hundreds of yards of shit, only to come out clean on the other side. And as D-Hop posted before his return, hope is a good thing, fellas, because the Arizona Cardinals are certainly in the thick of this thing.
Yeah, Bo, considering the landscape throughout the NFL, it's a great place to be where the Arizona Cardinals are. The fact that they haven't played great, Johnny Bo, I think that bodes well for them because we've seen teams start fast, especially this team, and end shitty. So I think that if it could be the reverse, teams struggle early on. We saw this with the wild card Tampa Bay team that went on the road and won the Super Bowl. I'm not saying that. I'm not anointing them. But what I'm saying is the fact that they haven't meshed well on offense bodes well for them long term.
Well, and, you think about this team at the end of last year, and it didn't matter that they had won double-digit games. They were a team that looked like they struggled against everybody, and they did. They lost at Detroit in humiliating fashion. I think trending in the right direction is underrated. I think that we contextualize it more than just wins and losses. Cardinals played good football on Thursday. A bunch of teams in their conference did not play good football yesterday on Sunday. That should make you feel good as a Cardinal fan, especially when you look at the landscape of not only their schedule and some of the cupcakes that they get in the AFC, but the NFC West, gentlemen. And that brings us to today's topic of discussion. Can the Cardinals win this division? I think that, with the NFC East racking up a bunch of early wins, it may be tough to get a wild card spot. Not impossible. But then you see both San Francisco get shellacked yesterday. The Rams are a week off. They're still a home underdog against the Niners this weekend. That tells you Vegas doesn't take them seriously. The Cardinals beat Seattle in Seattle with Hopkins and Matt Prater. I'm convinced they're going to, smoke them at State Farm Stadium. Do you think that this is still conceivable at 3-4 to win this division for the Arizona Cardinals?
I think this thing is wide open. I mean, when you look at the top and you look at the team that's the head of the NFC West division, does anybody have any confidence that the Seahawks are going to hold on to this thing all the way until the end? Sure, it's encouraging to see better quarterback play, to see them infuse that roster with young players. Sure, like that the corner at a UTEP is unbelievable. Size, speed. He's a ball hawk right out of the gates. But Kenneth Walker is a beast out of Michigan State. But is it sustainable? Is it sustainable? I would probably say no. So that means that, the Arizona Cardinals, they still have the two top dogs that you envision being in their way from the jump. And the LA Rams, they're probably going to make a move. They still have horses on their roster. And then the San Francisco 49ers with all those playmakers, but not any, consistent play at the quarterback spot. You got to think that the Arizona Cardinals, with 2 games on their schedule against that Niners team, the opportunity is there. Now, when you talk about, the team trending in the right direction, this is a team that has been known to be a hot starting team under Kliff Kingsbury and falling off at the end. To kind of see this play out on the opposite side of things and to kind of see them potentially trend in the right direction at the right time of year is encouraging for Arizona Cardinals fans. The grass isn't always greener on the other side, but it's nice to maybe get a glimpse of it and see how they can play with their stars fresh, with injuries. At the beginning of the season, they weren't where they wanted, but now, they're getting healthier and healthier with no major guys missing out of this lineup. I just think that if you're an Arizona Cardinals team right now, when you look at it, it looks like they can strike at this thing as far as the NFC West and really contend for this title at the right time. Now, you got to win football games, DA.
Yeah, well, it starts week by week and controlling what you can. As simplistic as it is, the Cardinals got a great opportunity going against Minnesota this week, right? We see them as a very balanced team. They have some wide receiver threats. I know that the Cardinals secondaries has had success against number ones, but they also have that ability to run the ball. And Cardinals have struggled as of late with teams that, are able to run the ball and pass. And one thing that I look at is matchups, right? And you look at, do they have a great tight end? And that's not Kirk Cousins' number one. He wants to go to his number one receiver, right? And I mean, that's it, and get the ball to Dalvin Cook. But from what I've seen from the Cardinals and the rest of the schedule, I think that in the injuries and the process of just the war of attrition that this game creates, I think the Cardinals are in a favorable place because of the fact that, as you said, Bo, they started off dinged up, right? And it's about timing. And if the Cardinals can get healthy, and I know that, make some acquisitions with potentially that we're going to get into later on in the show, I think that they could be ready for, come the postseason.
Yeah, I'm with you, DA and Bo. I'm of the mindset that, of course, this team hasn't played their best football yet. The DeAndre Hopkins factor cannot be overstated. This line, I think, to start, I got information today after our bet show, PHNX Bets Daily Podcast, myself, Shane Diefenbach. I was shocked that the Cardinals were only a 3.5-point underdog. That is shocking to me because that's Vegas telling you this is basically a pick 'em on a neutral field. You get 3 points for home field. So I did some digging. I'm like, what was this line a week ago before Hopkins came back and before the Saints win? It was almost 7 points. That's the DeAndre Hopkins factor, that they saw him. Vegas saw Diop on Thursday night put an ass whooping off the couch against the New Orleans Saints, and head coach Dennis Allen, who's a defensive coach, and said, he's going to cook Patrick Peterson and company. He's going to give them hell, come hell or high water on Sunday, and Kyler Murray is going to force feed him the football as he should. I would also say that where is this team vulnerable at? Where is their liability? Because I watched teams all day yesterday have gross liabilities all over the place. The Niners, for instance, Mike McGlinchey is a liability at right tackle. They've got a quarterback who's limited. The Packers, they have no wide receivers, right? You talk about the Chargers. They can't stop anybody defensively. The Cardinals, to me, maybe have a liability on the interior offensive line, but they're going to get some people healthy. And then on the defensive side, what is it? Maybe pass rusher. Other than that, especially now that they've embraced a lot of these young players, I don't think they have a gross liability that can be exposed week in and week out. If anything, I think the more you play the Simmons, the Zaven Collins, right, they're going to gain confidence. The Marco Wilson, that they can play with anybody, and you're going to see that translate to better play each and every week. So I don't know. Benjamin's running for 100 yards on Thursday Night Football. Bo, where is the liability on this team right now?
I don't think there's any glaring liability as far as the Cardinals go. I mean, I hear people who get kind of obsessed with the pressure rate that Kyler Murray faces, and sometimes when you play Moneyball, as far as allocating funds across the roster, when they build the offensive line like they did, you're not going to get perfect play. You're not going to get a perfect pocket every time. And Kyler Murray, with his legs, has the ability to evade that. I mean, look at the second play from scrimmage where he gets out of pressure and throws an absolute rope to Rondell Moore, and we saw more and more of that as he got more comfortable with DeAndre Hopkins being in that lineup. There's in 15 sacks in through 7 games. I mean, in most of that coming against this pressure from the Seattle Seahawks a week ago. So I think that they can compete for the most part in every facet of the game, and I think that on the other side of things here in Week 8 with Minnesota's playing some of the best complementary football in the league as far as offensive and defensively. But then you look at who they've played, like some teams that give you the opportunity to play really sound complementary football. One of the most cupcake schedules. I don't know if this is did Jim Harbaugh, did he create the Minnesota Vikings schedule this year? Is that how they got blessed with this, guys? I mean, because they haven't really played anybody or beat anybody. I mean, they come out of the gates and just dismantle Green Bay. They're awful. Detroit, New Orleans, we saw how bad they are. Chicago, and then Miami with their third-string quarterback. The one test that they faced was undefeated Philly, and Philly made easy work of them. So this is kind of an odd week to gauge. But to your point, Johnny, yeah, I don't see a major weakness. And I want your thoughts on this. I mean, have we seen the worst football from this Cardinals team already this season?
I watched them week 1 and can't imagine they can play worse than that, even against Kansas City. They looked pretty bad at times against the Rams, but at least the defense came to play that day. Look at their schedule, Damien, and tell me where there's the one game. I'm going to let you jump in. Look at the schedule, DA. I don't see a game they can't win the rest of the year. They're not going to win them all, we don't think.
Right.
But there's not a game on the schedule that they can't win.
Johnny, I would agree with that. But in terms of doing an audit of the team, looking at some areas of need or where they can be better at, right? I mean, to me, it's, huge things against quality teams. Like if you look at Kansas City and you look at Philly and you also look at the Rams, right? Two quality teams that you expect to be in the postseason. It was their tight end and the ability to stop the run. I think that those are two glaring concerns defensively. And I'd say offensively, it's just a consistency of play calling on offense and being able to move the ball with the head coach, right? We have all these moving parts. We got all these great show pieces. And now, Johnny, to your point, I think D-Hop helps that. I think that we saw that, the impact of him being targeted 14 times, having over 100 yards, bringing that calming demeanor to, his quarterback and his coach, right? Just being on the football field. The Arizona Cardinals, we talked about leadership, having that dog. DeAndre Hopkins is that because all the attention he garners, and we saw how that complimented and benefited guys like Eno Benjamin, Keontae Ingram, and when you could have that dual threat type of offense, I think that bodes well for the Cardinals. I'd say I'm proceeding cautiously optimistic with this offensive unit and defensive unit, but I would just like to see more consistency, locking down those tight ends and stopping the run, because you do have to face Kenneth Walker again. You do have to play the San Francisco 49ers, and we know that they're going to try and run the ball 42 million different ways, and teams have success. And once they identify what your weaknesses are, they're going to try and do that every week. But the game is about matchups, and it is favorable, Johnny, to your point, the rest of the season.
We got a bunch of people wanting to talk about pass rushers. We're going to get to that in our next segment. But, Bo, you had a chance to speak with Kliff Kingsbury today at the Cards facility. How does he feel about the landscape of the NFC West?
I mean, I think as far as he echoes kind of what DA was saying. I mean, there seems to be some cautious optimism coming from that team, that facility. They took some downtime this weekend. They did some self-scouting that people were asking. I remember people were asking me my DMs, does this team self-scout? Of course they self-scout. And they said they looked at some things. They want to see them improve as far as.
Nope, they don't do that, Bo.
Exactly. It's just like, come on, man. It's an NFL organization. I know you've got your frustrations with them, but they still do the things that every organization does. And they want to see what we've been talking about is like, they haven't seen the big play. I mean, we had the 31-yard play to Rondell Moore, but for the most part, there's a couple plays to DeAndre Hopkins that were in the teens, but still lacking as far as the big play. Kliff Kingsbury wants to see that reincorporated into the offense, something that's been so big ever since Kyler Murray hit the scene on the NFL level, so accurate downfield that they want to see that, show up. And, Minnesota, if you think about week 2 last year, there were plenty of them last year in 2021 against this Minnesota Vikings defense. So maybe this is an opportunity for that. But, we even had Kliff Kingsbury. He seemed a little bit looser during his press availability. I just asked him and said, hey, there's a lot of confidence from this team Thursday Night Football, but at the same time, there was a trade within the division where you had Christian McCaffrey going to the 49ers. And, was that something that to kind of dampen your mood a little bit? And this was the answer that he gave me.
No, that's all right. I knew they were playing the Chiefs, so I felt good about it. Good, thank you.
I felt good about it because they were playing the Chiefs. He knows how that goes.
Kliff. Talk it.
Throwing some shit.
He's ready to talk his shit. You know what? I miss that Kliff Kingsbury. I've wanted that Kliff Kingsbury to return. I don't want to see him Saul compelled. I want to see him dominate this division, and I think he can.
Johnny,
that's
last week
great.
you want him to give up his play.
I didn't. We all. I don't think.
Say you were emotional. You were just emotional.
Well, yeah. I try to take the pulse of the fan base, and we're all the same. We're fans in and of itself, and we're not push a fake narrative here. He wasn't good. He hadn't been good. The offense looked good Thursday night. They scored 28 points. I need more good Kliff. And then if I can get good Kliff, I get good Kliff pressers on Monday. So listen, I think the summary of this conversation, I think the three of us feel like this team went from dead and buried to potentially at 2-5 to 3-4 back in the division race. And I don't know how you don't watch number 10 play football on Thursday and not think the Cardinals are going to come out guns a-blazing against the Vikings this weekend. And good news for everybody. Right now, you can bet on that game on DraftKings. Again, I mentioned Cardinals are a 3.5-point dog. Maybe grab it while it's at that number. New customers can make any $5 NBA moneyline bet, get $200 if your team wins. Suns had a big win last night. They're playing again later this week. You can also boost your winnings tonight, 100% with the DraftKings step-up same-game parlays. So if you want to watch the poor, lowly Chicago Bears get their ass kicked by the Patriots, dabble on DraftKings. It's simple. God, I was telling Shane earlier today, gentlemen, it's like the Bears and the Broncos, the all-city family, just rotate shitty performances on national TV. Maybe give the Cardinals more national performances. They're 1-for-1 this year. You can boost your winnings. It's simple with DraftKings Sportsbook. Use that promo code PHNX. That's promo code PHNX on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See those show notes for details, Bo.
If you're going to get that extra action, but you want to maybe get some great food, get some great beer, go watch tonight's game at Four Peaks. Great environment for that. And also join us this Wednesday. It's the last Wednesday of the month where the entire PHNX crew is going to be hanging out. Shows all day long. Come hang out. Get $3 kit lifters, $3 Wow Wheat pints when you mention that you're hanging with the PHNX crew. Also, the Yotes play their inaugural home game at Mullet Arena, the home of the mullet. Join PHNX Coyotes crew at Four Peaks for our tailgate watch party. It's going to be on that 20-foot jumbo screen. You're going to see the mullet in all its splendor and the 2022-2023 Coyotes on the ice for the first time at home. Register in the link in the show notes. It's easy. Just look below. You'll find the link to join our watch party. Or wherever you're listening to your podcast. Got to be 21 years or older. Enjoy that sweet, sweet, delicious nectar that is Four Peaks beer and enjoy it responsibly.
It's a throwback day. We were gifted producer extraordinaire Leah, who is the host of PHNX Coyotes, doing a fantastic job. Support them. Coyotes are off to a better start than last year. You should check them out. Check us out. Smash the like button on this video because it's trade deadline talk now. Everybody wanted to talk about it. You got it. The Cardinals won. That means we're fully into the trade deadline that ends at the end of the month. And gentlemen, the eyes are on a pass rusher for the Arizona Cardinals. Defensive tackle, defensive end, outside linebacker. Open discussion, open forum. Tell us who you want in the chat. Bo Brock, I'm going to start with you. I put a bunch in the rundown, realistic, unrealistic options. Today, right now, October 24th, 2022. One realistic option for this team. Cardinal insider Bo Brock, go.
I'm going to stay away from the guys in Carolina just because I don't think that the Panthers are going to move off of either one of their defensive studs like Brian Burns or like Derek Brown. I do think there is a team that could potentially pry Burns away for the steep price tag of 2 first-rounders. We also have to keep in consideration that if it was Rams first-rounders, that those first-rounders don't exist until like 2028 and 2029, so that might kind of back them off from negotiating with Los Angeles, which is a great thing for the Arizona Cardinals. But I think just looking at how the Cardinals are set up and looking at Steve Keim's trade resume, I think that you have to be more realistic where guys like Robert Quinn or Jerry Hughes are going to be guys that he's going to target, guys who are a little bit longer in the tooth, going to cost maybe a later day 2 pick, and he doesn't have to give up a first-round pick that he covets, which is shocking to a lot of people because we don't see a lot of rookies play early on. But I think that's right in the wheelhouse of Steve Keim, and I just hope, regardless of what happens, that he's active, that he's bullish this trade season and continues to keep his foot on the pedal, because if the Rams are able to pull off a deal with less draft capital than the Arizona Cardinals, that's an indictment on Steve Keim and that he's not willing to do whatever it takes to put this team in a prime position to contend for another playoff spot, guys.
Bo, and the only way that I'll push back on that, because I think that he has up to this point, I think offensively he has, right? Getting Hollywood, also getting Robbie Anderson. And I just want to add, I think it's okay. I think it's kind of crazy that the Cardinals allow, players, they want players that yell at their coaches to be on their team. I mean, that's just crazy. But anyway, I just think it's the interior. The reason why I think it's interior defensive lineman that's needed, Bo, is obviously that concern that I have against, the run defense, right? But if you look at the emergence of those young defensive ends or outside linebackers, they're starting to get, their feet wet a little bit. They're starting to have some success. So maybe that need isn't as, warranted as it maybe had been 2 or 3 weeks ago, right? As Johnny mentioned, you're starting to play some of that young talent. Guys are starting to get, some more and more experience and starting to accumulate those sacks. And we saw against, Seattle that the the type of day that they had. So for me, I think I don't have all the guys memorized, but I definitely think that they should go interior D lineman, just given what they've had. And I just want to see, although he has those splash plays, I love what Isaiah Simmons brings to the team. I think that I think you guys would agree with me when I say we just want to see more consistency when he lines up, one-on-one against those opposing receivers or tight ends.
Anybody a boat person here? Does anybody own a boat? Has ever owned a boat? I have not. They are expensive. I've been in one, yes, many times, tubing, whatever. So I'm going to use a boat analogy as it relates to the Cardinals, the trades they've made, and a potential trade at the end of the deadline. The move for Cody Ford.
We live in Arizona.
We do. There are lakes here.
Landlocked.
Jack. Cody Ford, Robbie Anderson, the cornerback from the Raiders that poor guy can't get on the field. Those were stopgap trades to plug up holes in our boat, right? To potentially allow it from a sinking boat, put us at the bottom of the lake or the ocean. They need to go get a brand new motor to steer this shit to the postseason. That's the difference between those little 5th, 6th round trades. We're going to keep it above water. That's what Robbie Anderson's supposed to do. There's no Antoine Wesley. There's no Hollywood Brown. We got to keep it going. I need a new jet motor to push this bad boy.
Johnny, I got it. You can simplify it. We're just doing an LS swap on old school.
I don't even know what does that mean?
An fuel injection. We're going fuel injection until, you know what I mean? And you got an old 444 or something like that, or old 400 on the old school Caprice. And you're going LS swap.
Whatever Damien said. That's what I want. I'm going big fish hunting right here. Big game hunting. I'm called big fish hunting. I'm gonna. What is it called? Like champion fish.
Deep sea fishing.
Deep sea fishing. Give me a hammerhead shark, whatever that shit's called. I'm at least making a phone call to the Carolina Panthers because I know they rejected. I don't know if I believe this or not. 2-1s for Brian Burns. Now again, we've talked about this, Bo. There's 2-1s from the LA Rams, who pick at the tail end, who don't have a first round pick this year. Then there's 2-1s from Steve Keim. And if I'm Carolina, maybe I'm skeptical of the Cardinals making the playoffs. And shit, that one might be pick 15. That one might be pick 12. Now, we hope it's not. I'm at least making the phone call. I think it's malpractice to not even call Carolina. Then I'm working my way down the list. I'm contacting the Commanders. Now, it's unfortunate because the Commanders are a fraudulent 3-4, but they've won 2 straight, and they're probably thinking to themselves, well, we can hang around. But Montez Sweat, Deron Payne, those are the next 2 on my list. I can't do that. Then I think it becomes more realistic. The Chicago Bears season ends tonight. They are not going to compete. They have old players. They overplayed their hand with Robert Quinn, who is not having a great year. Now, would I take him on the Cardinals? Absolutely. But the more and more I'm thinking about this, I'm with Damien. Like, the Cardinals need an interior defensive tackle to penetrate against the run and the pass. Did I love what I saw from the lack of pass rush on Thursday, Bo? I did not. And I'm a little bit concerned. You play some of these teams with top-tier tackles, that could hurt you. But look at the schedule. I mean, the rest of your division, their offensive line, it's not very good. The Cardinals beat up Geno Smith. They just couldn't score points that game. Have you seen the Niner tackles outside of Trent Williams? Terrible. The Rams are on their 3rd string left tackle. So I do feel like Marcus Golden and company can get it done. But there are going to be teams, and it's going to start this weekend. We're going to see it, gentlemen, that want to run right at the Cardinals. Can they stop them? Do they have enough beef up the middle? With Rashad Lawrence's availability, kind of questionable, Bo, with the shoulder. To me, it's like, if I can get a Deron Payne, who's going to be a free agent, and I can court them with a second, that's better than any second-round pick I'm getting this year. I'm sorry, unless you're a
Hollywood equivalent, Johnny. Is that a Deron Payne? Is that a Hollywood equivalent?
Yeah, I think it's the same kind of deal. It's a cornerstone piece from the SEC that they don't have, that they haven't had. It's a Darnell Dockett-esque type of acquisition, I think, and I don't think I'm overplaying that. I watched him beat the shit out of the Packer O-line for 4 quarters yesterday. That is what they're missing. And they have a gluttony of guys. They got Chase Young. They got Monte. They can't pay everybody. And so it's like they need ammunition to go and get a quarterback next year. And they already traded picks for Carson Wentz. Even with, maybe they're realistic and we're 3-4 in a division with a bunch of teams with 5 and 6 wins. Maybe they think to themselves, okay, could the Cardinals sweeten the pot? Could they give them, and I propose this in the offseason, could they give them a 3rd or a 2nd and a Rondale Moore? What could we do to incentivize them a little bit? I know they got Curtis Samuel. They got some Johan Dotson. I'm just spitballing here. What would a trade package have to look like for Washington to consider that, Bo?
I think you just have to go with draft picks. I don't think that wide receiver room is actually pretty stacked. I mean, which player would you be willing to part with at a position of depth? Where are they really deep outside of the wide receiver?
They don't really have a surplus.
Right. So, I mean, but Payne, absolutely. I think even when you feel comfortable with Watt, with Zach Allen, Shard Lawrence, as you mentioned, all those guys, Lawrence is the one who's been going through it the last couple of weeks with the hand, now the shoulder. But then you had Allen, who's been oft injured his entire career. JJ Watt, we know his injury history. It seems like it's inevitable. So why not stack up? And when you can get a playmaker that can make an impact, like Payne can, that's great. And I see people in the chat talking about Cardinals Update, one of my favorite Instagram followers, talking about Bradley Chubb. I mean, when you look at Denver,
it's a great point.
What's their game plan right now? I mean, they are in absolute shambles. Yeah, let's ride all the way. Let's ride all our players out of town and get maybe some draft capital back.
That might be the most realistic option that anybody's listed. That team has no draft capital. They are in no man's land. Chubb's on the last year of his contract. He's having a good year, but they've got two other edge rushers that are having equal, if not better, seasons. That is not. It's not going to surprise me if he ends up in LA if he doesn't end up in Arizona, unfortunately.
Hey, I think that's a great ticker to come out for us. Let's ride with Bradley Chubb.
Put that on a t-shirt if we land him.
Yeah, for sure.
One thing though is you have to take in consideration what the team values. It's like we haven't seen a lot of sacks. We haven't seen a ton of pressure from the edges. But when you hear what Vance Joseph values from his defense, they value what we saw on Thursday night. They love to see turnovers. They love to see game-changing plays. They love to see quarterbacks off schedule and going from average to below average and making poor throws, poor decisions. They're not infatuated with sacks. They're not, and they would much rather see picks, fumbles than they would like to see some guy consistently.
All that. That's like the chicken and the egg thing. You don't get picks without pressure. Cam Thomas had pressure on Andy Dalton. That's why he threw that pick to Marco Wilson. CDH 410 in the chat. This might be a negative. Chubb agent is Kyler and Kliff's agent. Maybe Steve and Michael have had enough of our buddy and want to pivot off of that. But Chubb's a free agent. I think that is becoming increasingly likely because that team, God bless our friends at DMVR, they did a fantastic post-game show. It was like an hour and 45 minutes yesterday. And you want to talk about you're hitting rock bottom. That they are so inept offensively. Their defense is fighting, man. But man, that you could probably call up and just say, "Hey guys, we're going to throw you a lifeline. Here's a second-round pick for Bradley Chubb."
Yeah, I mean, I think it can happen. As you said, there's some familiarity there with his agent. Obviously, as a player, you want to go to a team that is a contender. And from the organizational standpoint, guys, they got guys ranked. You have a big board, and they have guys ranked. Obviously, they're free agents. What's available on the street? And then they have teams, right? What would they be willing in terms of the Cardinals front office to give up to get this player? And then that's when they make those phone calls. So I guarantee you, they have a team of. They have a list of what they need in terms of what we're trying to identify, right? Like offensively, D tackle, defensive end, outside linebacker, secondary, maybe interior offensive lineman, and then identifying those positions on other teams and what they think would be potentially available, right? You got a guy, like you said, you guys went for blood in the water. Teams that are, suffering right now, taking on water, maybe the Jags or just teams that everybody know. You already did some business with Carolina, so that's a possibility. Denver, where you have that familiarity at, but everybody within this league knows everybody, so it's not going to be a surprise if something like that happens. I mean, just look, given the week that's happened, the team, Robbie Anderson cussed out his coach. Carolina goes on to do great things, and he's on a team where he could have a huge, huge role with this Arizona Cardinals offense.
Yeah, there's a really fascinating storyline surrounding Bradley Chubb if he ever became a member of the Arizona Cardinals. I'll tell you about it, but you got to spruce up your home this fall with More Furniture's fall sale. Check out morefurniture.com, plus you'll receive a $100 gift card for every $1,000 you spend. Also, if you see us hanging out in the PHNX studios, we're hanging out in the More Furniture. We're also drinking some Tall Boys. Thinking, hey, they're putting back some Four Peaks beer. Not always the case. Sometimes we're hanging out and we're actually hydrating ourselves. We're murdering our thirst with our friends over at Liquid Death. It's not beer. It's actually mountain spring water from the Alps, and it's called Liquid Death. Why is it called Liquid Death? Isn't that a little aggressive for mountain spring water? Well, it's because they brutally murder your thirst, and infinitely recycled Tall Boy cans are helping bring death to plastic bottles. They donate 10% of their profits for every can sold to kill plastic pollution. Get free shipping on all water and merch. They've got some legit merch at liquiddeath.com. Use the /PHNX. That's liquiddeath.com/PHNX, or find Liquid Death at your local Target, Fry's, or Sprouts. So
I like this. Go ahead, Bo.
Yeah. The interesting storyline is, you know what it is, Johnny. I mean, Bradley Chubb, remember that draft 2018, he slips, right? Broncos are all ready to reportedly pull a deal off with old Steve Keim to put them in a position to draft a certain quarterback that now plays for the Buffalo Bills. But Bradley Chubb slipping to 5, who is the consensus like top prospect in that draft, had Vic Fangio and crew and John Elway thinking, we can't pass on this guy. So they don't pull the trigger on the deal. Bills end up trading up to 7. They take Allen, and then Steve Keim, the rest is history, trades up from 15 to 10, and they take the chosen Josh Rosen.
You know what would be better is they could just stay at 10 with their picks and take a Lamar Jackson, but I mean, that's a conversation for a different day. That makes me not want Chubb. I'd forgotten about that story. I burned it from my brain, but that's interesting. I'm going to tell you what else is interesting I had not considered. DeForest Buckner plays for the Indianapolis Colts. He's one of the best defensive tackles in football. He's 28. He's older. He's been paid. He's under contract.
Under 30 is good. Under 30 is good.
If he is available, if they make him, he's like the captain of their defense, but they'd have to be convinced. This would have to be a Jim Irsay trade. They're missing picks. They've traded picks for Wentz and for Matt Ryan. They need picks to get a quarterback. They might gut the house and start over. Buckner would come back to the NFC West and wreak havoc against the Niners, who shipped him out of town, against the Rams offensive line. That is, I don't think that'll happen. But man, that would be one of my top choices, because he is one of those few. He's a Calais Campbell-esque kind of player, maybe better, or certainly better right now, where you can play that 5 technique and make other people uncomfortable and get 7-8 sacks. And I just think he's
$16 million against the cap. I don't think that they have the ability, the wiggle room to do it. Well, no, I know. You'd have your capologist would probably pull his hair out and die from stress because he can't make that. I mean, that's tough.
I like Zach Allen, but I like winning more. And if I have to sacrifice Zach Allen hitting the open market so I can pay DeForest Buckner, I'm okay with that. I know that makes
for sure, but I'm talking about this year. You have to kind of free up, somewhere about like $10 million.
Well, yeah, just say, Tyler, we'll just defer some of your money, and D-Hop will defer.
Maybe. I mean, yeah, it comes down to your cap. Comes down to your cap specialist, but
do you know any
are you that good?
Anybody can help them? Drive down to Tempe, take care of that.
Those guys are actuaries, Johnny. Those guys are actuaries. They're not just accountants. Actuaries.
All right. So I'm already pissing these two off. Guess what? It's time for their least favorite segment of the week, where I tell everybody trending up and trending down for the Arizona Cardinals. Oh, you guys talk shit about it every week. Here we go.
That's why we love it.
Cardinals. Here we got Arizona Cardinals. Listen, they came off their dub. Here's who's moving up for the Redbirds in week 8. There they are. How about D-Hop's bank account, ladies and gentlemen? This idiot, me, on this show has said over the course of the summer, maybe they won't pay D-Hop $30 million. And then you watch them with and without DeAndre Hopkins, and good hell, can we write that check today? Can we write it yesterday? I think he solidified himself as a Cardinal in 2023 with his performance on Thursday. How about our guy, Marco Wilson? He throws a shoe. He falls to the 4th round. He's back now. He's picking off Andy Dalton and having maybe the greatest, what'd you call it, Bo, gif, reel that we've seen in the NFL season, jumping behind Andy Dalton.
It was electric. I mean, you see Andy Dalton discouraged, and then you just see in the background Marco Wilson fly through the air with his 43.5-inch vertical jump, like every single bit of it. Just unreal. Marco Wilson trending up. And then I like your 3rd edition here. I talked to Kliff today about this guy. Yeah. Oh, Billy.
I was gonna do that, but I was worried people wouldn't get the reference. Oh, you love the cable guy reference here. So what was he saying about old Billy Price? Because here's my thought process on it.
Mm-hmm.
He's hated in Cincinnati because he didn't live up to his draft stock. But he can come here and play some spot football, can he?
Yeah, I mean, he actually looked, I thought, outside of the red zone bad snap, I thought that he looked solid. And I asked Kliff. Kliff didn't really want to comment post-game after it until he looked at the tape. And I said, what'd you see on the tape? Because you've had some time. And he said he looked stout. He liked what he saw from Billy Price. He liked what he saw from Cody Ford, who, and this was according to Kliff Kingsbury, was in line to play regardless if the Max Garcia injury happened. Like they were going to split series anyway. So, but he liked what he saw from Cody Ford. He likes both of those guys with another week of practice under their belt. And it was a definite improvement. I know you lacked a little bit of interior pressure, not anything like you saw the previous week, but a solid performance from those guys. And there was only one direction to go as far as the play from the interior of that offensive line.
Guys, I like Billy Price too. I mean, besides that one play, Bo, you mentioned the fact that we're not hearing his name called throughout the game, him or Kobe Ford getting some new playing time. That bodes well. And I wouldn't even leave it at Wilson. Johnny, you brought up some great points, but Wilson, Simmons, and Hamilton. I mean, for all three, and we talk about just the impact and, the points taken off the board or the points added. I mean, just that secondary. I know that we had some questions in the chat about, is anyone concerned with this secondary? And I would say up to this point, no. I mean, don't get me wrong. They're going to get tried every week. However, I mean, given what we've seen against some quality receivers, they've shown that they're, some of the best in the league. And just with D-Hop, what he means to this offense, I just finally think that even Kliff took a sense of like that one deep breath, that exhale, because he was able to do so much more offensively. And I know that maybe the points total wasn't what everyone wanted. It wasn't 42 or whatever points offensively, but I think that the offense seemed like more smooth. It seemed like they had a rhythm to it and like they had a balance. And that's what we haven't seen. We've seen halves of football up until this point, but I would say throughout the game, you saw a balance of both passing and running, right? And it didn't seem like they got overwhelmed for the situation where Hop's presence definitely bring to this Arizona Cardinals, not only team, but just offense.
When I forget who tweeted it out, it was the first thing I saw this morning. I'm sure you guys saw it. Somebody from Pro Football Focus just talking about how much Kliff moved Hopkins around. He played a bunch of snaps in the slot. Haven't we been begging and pleading for that? Maybe he's had this queued up all offseason. It was great to see Hopkins move around because he is such an interchangeable chess piece where, yes, he can take the top off the defense from time to time, but where the Cardinals were really struggling, they were struggling everywhere. The big plays, we talked about it, but they just couldn't pick up third downs. They could not convert on third down without DeAndre Hopkins. They look like the Packers yesterday who went 0-6 on third down. That was the Cardinals. Now they have D-Hop back, and not only is he catching 10 passes, he converted like 3 defensive pass interference penalties or holding penalties to keep drives live. Bo, you talked about it on our audio-only show yesterday. It's just like everything. He impacts the defense in so many different ways. You have to game plan against him. There are like 10 guys in the NFL that can do that. And I think myself, other people underestimated this offense's ability to function without him. And I think it should not be, Bo, after what we've seen from Green Bay, who can't survive without Devontae Adams, it should not be looked down upon that the Cardinals without a DeAndre Hopkins struggle. Like that should be expected, right?
Yeah, I mean, you see it across the league. Anytime wide receiver ones, anytime elite players of any position aren't available, your team suffers. Like it's great. It's great when you can have that next man up mentality and you can keep your head above water and you can still compete and guys step up. Like that's like the romance of sports, right? That's why you love it, right? These underdogs coming out of nowhere and picking up where some star left off. That's awesome. But that's the exception to the rule. Like as far as the players, the caliber of DeAndre Hopkins, when they go away, you're going to struggle. Like a lot of people, of course, I'm with every single Cardinals fan where I wanted to see this offense show any signs of life, any signs of being able to play at a solid level without DeAndre Hopkins. And unfortunately, they couldn't do it. And the last test was the worst of it. It seemed like rock bottom against the bad Seahawks defense. But like what DeAndre Hopkins brings back to the table, so many things. He impacts the game so much, Damien. Like when you saw him, like He's not a 4-3 guy. He'll even admit that. He just doesn't have that speed, but the route running is so precise. The ability to get open is unmatched. It's like if you were to take Cooper Kupp out of the Rams offense, it would absolutely struggle and probably not be able to find its way the rest of the season. What is it about DeAndre Hopkins, in your opinion, DA, that separates him and impacts the game so much more than, even a guy like the caliber of Hollywood Brown?
Guys, I would say it's just his overall confidence and knowing what he can do. We've heard stories of, when they were going against the Texans and he said, I'm going to go out here and catch everything one-handed. He's that type of guy that believes that he can actually do that, and he has that success. And I think that having a player, right, we've seen it in those jump ball situations where Kyler, he's probably, D-Hop is probably covered. But Kyler drops back and knows that he's double covered or single covered and throws the ball up, and knowing that with those triple X size gloves that he wears is a high probability he's going to catch that ball. And that's a level of, I would say, just sanctuary for Kyler and Kliff, right? Like, I know he's covered, but he's always open, right? I mean, It's one of those, I'm always open. And to have a player like that, Bo and Johnny, I think that's a separator. We've seen the impact in Green Bay of not having a number one receiver. We've seen the impact in LA with the Chargers of not having a number one receiver. We've also seen it in Tampa Bay with Tom Brady. These great quarterbacks, right? But when their receivers are inconsistent, in and out, dealing with injury, I mean, because I was like a fan, right? Like, hey, well, Kliff is this, offensive dynamo. This offense should get going. But then you look around the league and guys like Aaron Rodgers struggling, Tom Brady struggling, the new, great hype in, for the Chargers struggling. So to me, that bodes well to where the Cardinals are at, because
I think so.
They remain competitive, Johnny. They're still winning games, and they're still in the thick of it, given the landscape of the NFC.
I like this comment from Jordan P. Isn't it crazy? Robbie Anderson most likely to catch the first deep ball from K1 on the year. I'm going to make a prediction right now. I think he catches a deep ball of some kind, 20-plus yards against the Vikings this weekend. So a lot of good for the Cardinals. It was tough to find some folks that were trending down. Here's what I came up with. I cheated a little bit. NFC West. Look at that sorry-ass face from Kyle Shanahan, career under 500 coach with his precious Christian McCaffrey, taking a butt whooping on national TV. You love to see it. And again, Seahawks, nice story, 4-3. They're playing a fourth-place schedule. We get to have our upcoming, second coming with them here at State Farm Stadium not too long. Arizona pass rush is, a little bit hit or miss after having a big day in Seattle. No sacks against Andy Dalton. We talked about it. It's a problem. How about the Kliff Kingsbury K1 bromance? Love that pick from producer Leah. On Thursday Night Football, that situation was flipped. In turn, we saw Kyler Murray throwing some F-bombs at Kliff Kingsbury. Again, I think the relationship is salvageable, but it also shows you, like, right now, everybody, Bo Brock, is fighting through this rut offensively, and it's wearing on people. Like, those are the two, outside of Steve Keim, Kliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray have the two most pressure on them of anybody in the organization. So when it's not working and it doesn't look good, they're going to come to blows.
Absolutely. I think this relationship is rock solid. I think it's just past the honeymoon phase. I mean, we all are in long relationships and have partners and wives, and it's reached just the sweatpants stage, right? And you things, life is busy, things are hard, and you want everything to work out, but sometimes things get stressful, and you have, contrasting ideas of what works and which way you want to go. And that's what we saw on full display. They want this thing to work. Talk about, there's no rift here. And there's no, like, anytime people asked Kyler Murray last week before the game and the week preceding that about Kliff Kingsbury potentially relinquishing play calling, he wouldn't even entertain it. He wants Kliff to be the play caller. He likes Kliff as the head coach. He knows that Kliff handpicked him to be the number one pick. That relationship, I think, is unshakable at this point. And I like it. And I think from a competitive standpoint, like, you look at, you think Tom Brady and Bill Belichick's relationship was perfect the whole way? It was far from it, but the results were, they wanted the same thing.
You never saw Tom Brady yelling at
True.
But I gotta throw this out to you guys. Any of you guys have older brothers?
Have older brothers?
I do not.
Okay, so Bo, you could relate on this, and Johnny, if you got an uncle or somebody, Johnny, that some type of mentor maybe that you had when you were younger. Just think about it like that. So for me, that's what I saw. I saw two brothers fighting. I saw, there's an older brother, there's a younger brother, and then when that younger brother reaches that level of maturity, it's like, you ain't gonna be talking to me like that. You know what I mean? You ain't gonna. We're working together here. And to get this goal, and it's to go out here and win football games. And, I think that Kliff was instrumental in getting Kyler and vice versa, right? They're kind of two peas in a pod. They go together in terms of this relationship. However, I think there comes a point in time where they're both eye to eye, and it's not Kliff as the head coach. And because we see those type of relationships, right? We see the respect that Aaron Rodgers gets. We see the respect that Tom Brady gets, right? And only when it's Kyler is it, it's disrespect. He's yelling at his coach. No, it's not. It's like, hey, man, like, we're both professionals here, bro. Like, I understand, I get what you do, but we can, we got a lot of game to play. You know what I mean? There's no point of getting all extra, animated and emotional given the circumstances. And I love the fact that D-Hop was in the middle, calming them both down and being that leader. Because think about that, guys. Think about if that happens 2 weeks ago, there's no D-Hop in the huddle. How does that play out? I guarantee you we're still talking about it. Yeah, not well, and we're still talking about it.
Yeah, it ends with field goals and losses. That's what happens.
You're not seeing Rondale Moore step in the middle of that. You're not seeing AJ Green step.
They might get tossed out the way, Bo.
That's like me breaking up like me breaking up an argument between Saul and Bo. Rondale Moore. All right, guys, stop. Please stop.
Come on, I know better. I ain't going after GM like Kyler went after Kliff.
No, there's love and respect from K1 and Kliff Kingsbury. And Bo, you made a great point. Like, it's a good chance Kyler Murray's not a Cardinal without Kliff Kingsbury, and I think all Cardinal fans need to recognize that, even if he is let go after the season or he fulfills his extension. Like, Kliff Kingsbury has done a lot of good for this organization. He has not been a bust of a head coach. Does he need to do better? Absolutely. But I think Thursday was a step in the right direction. I want to get to this NFL pressure chart really quick because we talked about the Cardinals struggling to get pressure. This comes from our friends at Pro Football Focus. Blitz heavy underachievers. The Cardinals are down there with the Giants. They're not a no threat. They can get after the quarterback, but they have to blitz. They do not have an elite front four, and they're not aggressive and effective. I think you look at this. I mean, the Rams are in the market for a pass rusher, and they're doing, I think, a little bit better than the Cardinals. If you look at this graph, they're at least closer to league average. I look at this and I say, Steve, look at the teams that you want to be competing against. The Cowboys in the NFC, of course, the Niners in your own division. We already saw the Eagles. Like, they can get after Kyler Murray with 4. And then there's the Commanders. They have a smorgasbord, as we've already talked about, of quality defensive linemen. This is just like the perfect encapsulation of, it's good to blitz, fans. I love to see, Jalen and Isaiah Simmons and Buddha coming off the edge, but there is no Chandler Jones anymore. There's no somebody that can go up against Trent Williams and beat his ass and get a strip sack of Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't have confidence anybody can do that right now, Bo.
Yeah, and you look at this chart, just look at some teams that might be falling out of the playoff picture and maybe start to eye some of those players. We see Denver, we see Cleveland. I'm shocked to see where LA, the Rams, and how they're blitz heavy underachievers, even with the front seven play that they get from Aaron Donald, but that they wouldn't fall more on the elite front four part of this. But yeah, this is interesting. I mean, it takes me back. I mean, I have to dust off my TI-83 to really figure out, what this freaking chart means, but it doesn't look great for the Cardinals.
No, and I think that you could identify, guys, where the landscape of the NFL right now, right? You just circle out teams that are maybe, playoff, contenders, right? With the exception of a team like Green Bay, because you know that they're not going to make any decisions without Aaron Rodgers, blessing, because it's going to come back in the media and he'll say something crazy, right? But if you look, Bo, to your point, you got Cleveland, you got Jags, you got Denver, all those teams are opportunities, I really feel like. So if you got a player on that team, and like you talked about, F them picks, man, you want to win right now. And I think
F them.
Getting a guy like making that decision to get Hollywood, to get Robbie Anderson, to get Ford, to Steve Keim wants to win like this year. I think that's where he sees the opportunity. Michael wants to win. Michael Bidwell wants to win. I think he's given Steve like, hey man, if we could get somebody that can make this team competitive right now, and we're going to the playoffs and the Super Bowl, do that. And I guarantee you that they're having those conversations. What's the countdown, guys, in terms of the trade deadline? How much more time the Cards got left?
I believe it's a week from today. Doesn't it end on November 1st, Bo? So
Okay.
I'm not going to say Sunday's the end all be all, but it does feel like you have a competitive outing, win or loss against the Vikings. I think it's a shot in the arm to this organization on Monday if Steve Keim says, I'm going to get you another player to help because I feel like this is a playoff team. And if you want to support the Cardinals potentially in their pursuit of the playoffs, listen, we got a home game against Seattle that the team needs, and we need you there. And you can score super cheap tickets using the Game Time app. It's one of our most favorite apps. The GM Saul Bookman, my dad were on it. They got tickets for way undervalued, 60% off. Procrastinators out there, grab it on the Game Time app. And then you can also double down and make some money doubling on fantasy football with the Underdog Fantasy app with promo code PHNX. Your first deposit with Underdog Fantasy, they're going to double it up to $100 using that promo code PHNX. So go to the game with Game Time app, then use Underdog Fantasy while you're at the game. And hint, I would be betting the over on DeAndre Hopkins each and every week. Bo Brock singing the praises of D-Hop last week on the Fantasy Football Show. Hammer it hard, and you can do it. Win some coin. Use an Underdog Fantasy promo code PHNX.
The higher lower, man, it's addictive. And I almost cashed in if I didn't throw AJ Green in my higher lower. That's on me. That's not on Underdog. Underdog brings me joy every time I open the app. Yeah. So that was a tough L. That was a bad beat.
All right. I'm going to tell you what's not a bad beat. Going to gophnx.com, subscribing, becoming a member, using promo code Howard, checking out our buddy Howard Balzer's fantastic articles. It is so great to see Howard cranking out content on the reg. I grew up reading Howard. I know many of you did as well. His ties to the Cardinals in their St. Louis days. And we got him now as a part of the PHNX family. And guess what? If you go to gophnx.com and become a member for the entire year, you can cop a free t-shirt from the PHNX merchandise locker. I just put my order in last week. I've got the Hollywood Hills sign on Camelback coming up. I've got the touchdown celebratory t-shirts. We ran there's the Hollywood Hills. Look at that t-shirt. One of the best t-shirts we got going right now. Look at our touchdown celebratory tee. Producer Leah, do we still have the Suns deal going at the PHNX merchandise locker? I think $10 off. I think maybe check it out. Even if we're not having the sale, go and get your t-shirt. And then maybe you could pop an OGs or two, Bo Brock.
Absolutely. And you can sleep a little bit better for it because they're changing the game with their Sleep Time Gummy. That's right. It's aquaberry flavor. It's got 2-to-1 THC to CBN ratio. And CBN is the compound that helps specifically in you falling and staying asleep. You got to check it out. You got to check out all their products. The easiest way to do that, check them out online, ogsbrands.com. That's OGEEZ brands.com, or on Instagram at ogsbrands. You can find them in your local dispensary. You got to be 21 years or older to purchase.
Picking spreads. Good to see you, my man.
Did you say something, Bo? I took one of them aquaberries. I passed out.
He's out.
I wasn't sure. Say something, Bo?
I just said that it's changing the game. You're flavoring your dreams. That's what you're doing.
All I know is when I come in to do games with this crew on Sunday, and there's a bunch of OG product, when I walk into the studio, when I leave the studio, the OGs is gone. I'm not going to say who takes it. I'm not going to say what's everybody's favorite. I just know OGs is around the PHNX studios. It's not around long. You can buy all of our merch, as producer Leah mentioned, at the PHNX locker. Picking spreads. Thanks so much for catching a live stream. And this hat right now, you can get this at the locker. It's fire. I love Damien's black on black. Saul said no free shirt for Johnny. Well, listen, I'm a company man. And I want to be a man of the people. And to do that, I got to spend my money and support the cause. You should too. And you should also support this show. Become a subscriber wherever you get your podcast. If you haven't already, please smash the like button below. We're back later this week. It's Viking preview week. 4 Peaks on Wednesday. For Damien Anderson, Bo Brock, I'm Johnny Venerable. See you next time.